Good morning. Hello and welcome to the People Pleaser Support Group. My name is Tina Rose, if this is your first time here. And here in the People Pleaser Support Group, we hold space for each other's healing journey in a way that honors each other's lived experience and encourages each other's recovery. I have been guided to come on daily and share my story authentically in any raw emotion that comes up as I do, share authentically and honestly, responding to what I really feel in that moment. Because I have been summoned to change the trajectory of your life. I am here to fulfill my soul mission as a voice, as a guide through my true nature, that might help others work through their childhood trauma and learn new ways to live, behave, communicate in a way that helps you to love yourself again, to fully accept yourself, to see the truth of your divine being. You've been a human doing, but what helps you to be fulfilled, feel fulfilled, find your happiness, find your true purpose, is to know your true self, your true nature that's been covered up by all the conditioning and unhealthy thought patterns that cause us to make the choices that don't work for us. Rather than saying right or wrong, in our conditioning, we fall back on those unhealthy thought patterns that make life harder because it doesn't work for us. And I am here to show you practical ways that I have come out on the other side of living in those old ways of being, choosing to see, to acknowledge, and go beyond the acknowledgement by choosing to live in the way that meets your needs and wants and your desires. As you learn what those are. If you were like me, you ignored those. You were taught to ignore those, your wants and your needs, to make everyone around you happy and feel like they were getting what they wanted and needed. It's time now for you to choose you. It's past time. But I say, always be gentle with yourself. And when I say it's past time, I'm not judging anyone. Because for decades, I knew that it was time for me to learn a new way to live and be and think and speak. And for decades, I kept pushing it back, putting it back on the deepest shelf. And then about 10 years ago, in my deepest, darkest time, I finally decided I didn't want to go any lower. Yet I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to heal. And this was when my marriage of, at that time, 25 years, came to an end, or began to come to an end, because it was 6 more years before I was actually divorced on paper, or not married on paper. And I knew 15 years before that, or 10 years before that, that my marriage needed to end in order for me to continue to grow and expand. I had plateaued. And being in that relationship still kept me blind to the next steps. And it might not be that way for everyone. I'm not saying that everyone who is ready to heal from people pleasing needs to be separated or not be in a relationship. I'm just saying that is how it needed to be for me. And so 10 years after I knew this, it finally came to a head, and I was no longer together with that person in the physical. And even knowing that and trusting that, I still needed to grieve the relationship that I had long searched for before I met him. And that for that 25-year period, I had fallen into a deep belief that this was what I wanted. I had always searched for love, someone to love me, because I had never gotten it before. Growing up, the feeling of being accepted and loved. And starting out in that marriage, in that relationship, we were the perfect couple at that time. And for years to follow, it was everything that I needed. And all during that time, I was cultivating my inner world, my personal development, my self-help therapy, teaching myself, as I would say at that time, becoming a better person, becoming a better friend, a better wife. And that's what it was for a long time. I was bettering my responses and my being in the external world, meaning how I responded to others for them, for their comfort. And then at the time that we separated, I knew that it was time for me to do something different. I needed to feel my feelings. And as I started reading A Course in Miracles and doing the 365 lessons, it became clear to me, because my spirit guides were putting it into my mind, that I needed to grieve that relationship. And it was the whole dynamic of my relationship with that person, and not being the same as it was before, and my at the same time my relationship with myself. I had to grieve the person I had been when I was addicted to being accepted by someone else, something outside of me. I had to grieve because I knew I didn't want to be that person anymore. I wanted to be someone who was confident in myself, me alone, not confident in what I could do by being with someone else and feeling like their love was the measure of my self-worth. I wanted to be confident in my own being, and that was so covered up. So at the time, the first steps that I had to take was to figure out, and allow the grief to be felt in this body, the grief of those relationships between my ex-husband, or my soon-to-be husband at that time, my soon-to-be ex-husband at that time, and my marriage to the old self that I had been with 50 something years. Well, yeah, 50 something years. And I allowed the grief to come up. I didn't know what it was like to really feel my feelings, because I had ignored them and pushed them down for so many decades. That's how I had been trained. Definitely mind trained, emotionally trained, to ignore my true nature, to ignore my true feelings. So began the long process of grieving, and it brought up things and pain that I had been terrified of feeling and experiencing, and it was all okay. I got through it. God and our higher self does not put anything in our path, in our experience that we cannot handle. We just have to make the choice. We have to choose us. And the process of grieving for me, because I had so much suppressed grief, I did a QHHT hypnosis. I drove a couple hours away from my home to find this person, and it was, I'll say, revolutionary. Um, the healing that was ignited on that day during that hypnosis on my way home on that almost 2 hour drive, I started to have symptoms, physical symptoms of this grief coming up. And as I got closer to home, my fever got higher and higher. By the time I got home, I had 103 fever. And so, as the symptoms, the closer I got to home, the symptoms of a respiratory infection were becoming more and more obvious. And I could feel my lungs and the infection in my chest and my respiratory system. And I was coughing and I was breathing heavier. So this culminated over a 2 hour period the moment I stepped out of that studio, that hypnosis studio, and driving home. And it lasted for a while. You know, I waited thinking, okay, maybe it's just going to pass. But because it was bacterial infection, it wasn't going to go away. uh, so I ended up at the doctor's office and got some antibiotics to help move that through. But that is how much healing, once I set my intention, that's where the healing began. And right now, I am being guided to bring through and allow a channeled energy transmission in silence. So we're going to do that now. I forgot that I just realized that I left on my cell phone playing a little relaxing music video. So get into your comfortable position. And I was guided this morning, and right now it just came into my mind's eye to mention this painting that I did probably around that time that I was talking about. And it says, I'm trying to remember. I had it memorized. Let me look at it real quick. Oh, okay. Once I hear remind myself of the beginning. Okay, it is something that I kind of put together from different sections of A Course in Miracles. And it is a prayer that goes like this. As you say, I am open to receive. I see within me who is Christ, and I remember the power, wisdom, and vision of God are made available to me. I am as God created me, perfect, whole, and healed. I am forever free. And now we begin into the going into the silent energy, healing, and transmission. Wow, that was so powerful. What I was feeling, the energy coming through for the benefit and the highest good of anyone resonating with this content today. We love you. Blessed be.